a songwriter and singer. It kind of comes along with that. I was a wife for 34 years and a mother, a pastor's wife for 14 years, and a college student for 6 years during empty nest. My husband passed away in the year 2000, and boy, Jill, I could really relate to you because I don't know how we get closer to God than when we have exhausted our own understanding. It was very, well, I also want to tell you that my husband was a recovering alcoholic and he had 20 years of sobriety when he died. So that kind of brought me into working. I worked at Jackson Recovery with adolescents, and it brought me into counseling. He also struggled with depression. I don't know if any of you have anyone in your family or if you have struggled with depression, but that's really a difficult time. So I have my master's in counseling, but sometimes I think I have it in the hard school of Knox. Did you ever think that? I was a widow for 7 years. By the way, I have two children. And now I've been a wife again for 6 years. And oh my goodness, I talked to God when I met my husband, because of course I was a licensed mental health counselor, and his last name was Nut. And I said to God, he is my new best friend, but I can never marry him. Because my name would be Jamie Nut. Could you clean the water? I'm so dry. But you know, never say no, because here I am. Jamie Nut. I still can't get used to it. I am a mother to 3 stepchildren that are married and have children, so we have 5 together. I am a grandmother of a combined total of 15. I'm only saying, and I have 2 great-grandchildren. And now I'm retired. Oh my gosh, after all that. And that's been kind of an adjustment. But I want to talk to you today about some of the things that I gained from working with couples in my office, in my practice. I often have told couples that a home is like a greenhouse. I'm very visual. What is so special about a greenhouse? Well, the temperature is controlled, isn't it? And water, everything that's needed, light, even though it's maybe not sunlight. And so I wonder what kind of atmosphere you have in your home, or I have in my home. If there's too much heat, too much anger going on, every plant in the house wilts a little bit each time. Or what if there's cold silence or not being able to discuss things? Well, then that's kind of like frostbite. Don't have to have words, but it's like frostbite to every plant there. And I always talked to the couple about, I don't want you to tell me what your atmosphere your husband brings, because we could really talk about that, couldn't we? But I want you, when you wake up in the morning, to ask yourself, what atmosphere am I going to bring to my home today? Because it's a choice. You know, I used to think, before working with a lot of couples, I used to think that communication was the big deal. Not enough communication. You know what I found out working with couples? There's a lot of words flying around. Nobody is listening. After a while, you could parrot, couldn't you, what that person's going to say, and they know what you're going to say. So I want to talk a little bit about empathetic listening. Empathy is not sympathy, because sympathy is feeling for someone. If someone had a loss, you feel for them. Empathy is feeling as someone, trying to put yourself in their place. Empathy is the ability to sense what a person is thinking, feeling, and needing. So I'm going to show you a little example. Now, this is orange, right? And this is green, okay? When we talk, this is empathy. Well, I have to give you an example. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Who's going to help me, Chris? Okay, she said she would, so I'm really counting on her. Okay, if I showed you this, and showed you this, and asked you, what color do I see? What would you tell me? What color do I see? I see orange. If you were 3 years old, and I showed you this, and I showed you this, and I would say, what color do you think I see, Chris? What would you probably tell me? Probably green. Isn't that the truth? Because it's an abstract thing. In empathetic listening, sometimes we are so angry. Let's say this is your spouse here who's thinking green, right? And sometimes we want to say, I can't believe you are thinking like that. Green, how dare you? I don't even like that when you think like that. But what we want to remember with respect is that you see it orange, but they see it green. Does that make sense? And what we try to do is hear where they're coming from, without criticism, without judgment, and giving each other, hopefully, respect for the color that we actually see. Is that making sense? How can we change? There are things in our lives individually, and there are things in our marriage that we would like to have changed. And during my practice, I had this hanging on my wall. Hope, period. Faith, period. Change, period. When people came to me, they didn't have a lot of hope. But it was exciting for me. We were not just a mental health place, but that middle word of faith is where it's all at. Because God restores the faith and can bring the change. I don't know about you, but I haven't had a whole lot of success mustering up change in my own life. I fall short. These are the verses I'd like to share. 1 Peter 4:8, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. Marriage is the unification of two sinners. Oh my goodness, that sounds like trouble, doesn't it? No one is perfect in a marriage. There will be times when both will fail each other and mess up or hurt each other. And this verse is really kind of a neat one to remember, isn't it? That God would help us see through eyes of love. I have this hanging in my bedroom. May Christ always be the heart of this marriage. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And then the final verse is from Ephesians 4:2-3. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Those are not the typical marriage verses, but boy, do they ever fit. When So my first thing is, how do we change? I believe that God is a part of helping us to change. And you guys are so quiet. It's just almost taking your breath away what I'm saying. Is that it? I don't think that's it, but I want you to be comfortable. Do you know what? When you try to change something, here's my little saying: do anything but what you're already doing. Yeah, because you know why? What you're doing is not working. And so why would we just keep hitting our heads up against the wall? Do we think, let's say we have something going with our husbands, and do we think that if we tell them 100 times, they're going to say, oh, I could have had a V8. Why didn't I think of that? Well, I'm going to change. I'm glad you said that 100 times. No. It works totally the opposite, doesn't it? So, if you were before me as a couple, I would say, you know what? I want to teach you a new dance step. Because what you guys are doing is kind of clumsy. And I like to call it the cha-cha. You guys have been doing the cha-cha maybe for a long time. So I tell you, I want to teach you the waltz. How many are dancers that like to waltz? One dancer. Oh, Chris, come on. Okay, the waltz is so romantic, isn't it? It just kind of flows back and forth. So, as a couple, I would say here, I would turn on the music, beautiful waltz, and teach you the steps. And then I would say, okay, you're both getting it now. So let's try it. And we've worked on it for a while. You know, I'm not just throwing you out there. So then I put on the music, and all you do is the cha-cha to the waltz, right? Which is no longer funny when I've done it about 4 times now. Because we go over it, we go over the new dance step. So, what do you suppose the first thing about change is? You have to stop doing the cha-cha. Somebody has to stop doing the cha-cha, because you will do it till the day you die. Are you with me? Okay. So maybe be the person that stops whatever you're doing that's not working. Isn't that easy, really? Change, because it always seems so monumental. But what if it's just stopping doing what is not working for you? Okay, now I want to give you the example. I told you I'm kind of visual. Do you remember the old teeter-totters? The ones that apparently aren't very safe because they're not in all the new play equipment. Well, I could teeter-totter with my dad when I was 5 years old. Because why? What did he have to do? Shift his weight. He had to shift the weight, didn't he? He had to come toward me, and then we could teeter-totter. I don't even want to talk about the friend that let you go, that jumped off, let you, boom. Okay, what does that have to do with marriage? There are some things in your marriage that are way, way important to you. And I'm praying that your spouse comes toward you in those times, shifts the weight a little bit, and allows that balance to remain. And there are things that are really important to your husband. You know what they are. What about if you shift toward them and balance that weight? That is a wonderful concept. Now I want to tell you about my swing set. Is this so cool, or what? This demonstrates family systems theory, if you can only imagine. And my husband made this for me. Now I have all kinds of water up here. It's multiplying. Okay. I'm gonna do this. When I started working with teenagers, I'm going to demonstrate this to you. One of the sides of the swing is the mom. One of the sides is the dad. And can you ever imagine how important this is? And these are your children. Well, sometimes when I worked with adolescents in recovery, the parents might think, well, I'm bringing Johnny, fix him, and then we'll come and pick him up in 3 months. Not so, is it? Because then I get to say, this is a perfect time to look at the system that's going on, the whole family. And then we worked to strengthen this between the mom and the dad. Do you know when you have little children, oh my goodness, does this feel almost impossible to do? Dates or time alone. I know one couple that the wife will not get a babysitter. No way. What do you think that does to this? The time between the husband and the wife. I want to give you one more example because I worked with a family that the husband had struggled with depression and they were now separated. There was a little 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. The 11-year-old was so upset about her dad's depression, upset about the fact they were leaving, and she was delighted for me to tell her, your job is just to swing. It's not your deal about dad's depression. It's not your deal about your mom and dad. That's all adult stuff. It's just your job to swing. And she never forgot that. And she was allowed in her own self permission to let the other things go. When you have children, kind of goes back to the greenhouse thing. When you have children, they feel the effect of what's going on in all of this. So I want you to remember, isn't this just a perfect group to have a swing set, really? Yeah. I want you to remember, even when the kids are little, how important this is. Because my sister Shelley and I were talking too, she's just about ready for empty nest. And she says, oh my goodness, this is important. This tests out how good you did when the kids were growing up. Because you don't want to lose track of that. The other thing I want to tell you is sometimes one parent is absent a lot. So it starts to look like this. I can get it to do that. I'll come over here at Dad. Starts to look a little bit like that. What happens to the swing? Who can tell me? What happens to the swing? It's askew, isn't it? And everybody feels what's going on. So sometimes, maybe even if you're a single mom or your husband works a lot, you have to be very creative. Sometimes when I worked with single moms, we had to shore up the swing set. I was actually a part of this if Dad wasn't there, or if Dad, I was a part of helping her with with their family. And maybe sometimes you have a dear friend that fills in. Okay. I'm gonna close, and so that we can, I am so happy because I worried about the time. Isn't God good, really? Okay, I want to talk to you. Look how visual I am. By the way, this way to the lake. Do you ever feel like that? In my day, it was Calgon, take me away. This actually has nothing to do with what I'm going to say, but don't you feel like that sometimes out on the air mattress? Okay. Do you ever feel as a mother, as a wife, that you are like a boat without oars? Because there are so many demands on you that it doesn't seem like you get to choose things, right? And in depression even, do you know that some people have just thrown their oars down? And then they are tossed, whether it's with busyness, just tossed from one thing to the other because there's no direction. Well, of course, I'm going to say that we pray for guidance. But also, you got to pick up the oars. What do you think that means for you? What's important to you, even as a mom, even as a wife, but as an individual? During you're so talkative too. That's what I like. I'm just throwing things out here. What do you think is important? Who would dare to tell me? What's important to you that shows you pick back the oars? Pardon?
Sometimes getting out of bed.
Getting out of bed. That's exactly right. Okay.
Getting enough sleep.
Getting enough sleep. Oh my goodness. Letting some things go means you pick up the oars. Did you have your hand? Oh, she scratched her head and I called on her, right? For me, even during retirement, devotions helps me, but oftentimes that doesn't happen for one reason or another. So, don't forget to take the oar. Today, I guess, take back the oar, will you, in your life? And do some things that you think are important. Fit that in. And I just pray that Christ will be the head of your life and of your marriage, because a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And I thank you, and we're going to have some questions. Oh, and I just know you're going to be crazy with questions. Anything that you have a question about? Chris is so scared.
I have a question. This does not have to do with marriage. So.
Okay.
My son is in 2nd grade, and we had this little social test done, and one of the things was he lacks empathy.
Okay.
What exercises can you do?
How do you
help?
teach that? Yeah. Do you know, when I was looking around at empathy before and now, there are some little skills you can learn, because empathetic listening is a skill. That means that you can help him with that. So maybe you could use the card that I used and say that we feel differently, we see things differently, and then ask him, take a subject and then ask him how he feels about that, what he wants to say about that, and then have him listen to what you say, so that he could start to see how somebody else feels differently than him.
Okay.
That's a hard one, though.
I just have a comment because you were talking about marriage.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to share. My husband and I went through a marriage
absolutely love that. I had an exercise that I would give couples called the duct tape experience. And that would be, take a subject that's even a very difficult one for the two of you, tell each other ahead of time that you're going to listen to everything he has to say about that, and then at another time he will listen to you. So the duct tape thing was that you put imaginary duct tape on your mouth, sit on your hands if you're on top with your hands. And then the very first time, see it's not problem solving. You just want to know, where's he coming from? He thinks about it green. So listen to that, and the only thing you can say to him is, at the end of what he says, I don't want to rush you. Is there anything else you wanted to say? And then end it, and come back, maybe the next day even, and ask for him to be respectful of listening to you. And the only thing he says at the very end is, okay, do you have anything more to say? Because I'm really interested in hearing. I love that. Thank you for that reminded me. Okay, anybody else?
Well, with the same thing she's saying is that I learned that my husband is always trying to fix things as soon as I'm saying something, so I have to come to him and be like, I just need you to listen, I don't need you to fix it. And because I'll talk about the dumbest things and he could care less about, and he always tries to fix it or he doesn't want to hear it. And it's like, I just need you to listen and just nod. I don't care if you really care. And that makes me happy.
I know.
So he listened, I know he heard it. But that makes him feel like he doesn't have to fix it, and then he's like, oh, I don't really care if he's really listening or not. But
Just don't try to fix
But more
it.
than likely, he will be listening, especially because he doesn't have to fix it. So.
That is a relief, really, isn't it?
But you go forewarning is what you know.
I love
you learn how
that.
to do, so.
Yeah, yeah. And the flip side of that is sometimes wives try to change
Yes.
the person. Can you relate to that? Yeah, and so that's what we have to work on not doing. They have to work on not fixing it, and we have to work on not trying to change them. Because then it's back to, I don't understand why you don't think orange. I don't get it. Okay, we have time for more.
Just on that note, I just wanted to share a lesson quick that I learned about changing my husband, and it was just through prayer.
Yeah.
I think many times, just to put a biblical perspective on it, we want to change them and make them be better because we see that it's going to benefit everybody, even them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, a friend told me, Katrina, stop, you say it once and then don't say it again. And she says, and you pray about it. And I have done that. It's really hard to do, but I've done that. And I have seen how God has moved me out of the way and changed him. And it has been a permanent change rather than a change to appease me or the moment. And, so that was
healing.
yeah, I had to get out of the way. I think sometimes, we want to change and we think that we're doing good. But really, God's saying, you know what, step out of the way and let me work on your husband because I do the best work.
Yeah.
So
The same thing
yeah.
happened to me. I had to give
Yeah,
it to God.
just-
Like, I
yeah,
can't
the
do it. I
control
give it to you.
is
Just do
brutal.
it.
Yeah,
It
you
just
gotta
happened
let
one
it
day.
So
I don't know
hard.
why.
One more.
Well, I was gonna say off of hers, the Power Praying Wife.
Yes.
She says
Great.
we have to pray for our own hearts to change.
First
because
thing.
Who we desire our husbands to be is something that maybe God doesn't even have in His plan. So we have to examine our own hearts, pray for our own hearts to change because we as moms and wives have to change too. And then that's when you start to see the change in your husband. And I've seen amazingness in that. And instead of saying, God, change this about him, I don't like this, or do this, I just said, okay, God, move me out of the way, but also change me. How does he want me to do? And you just see changes just like that. So.
That's so true. Okay, well, here's Rochelle.
I just wanted to say that, one of the things that I really liked about what you said was when you just picked up the swing and said, all you have to do is swing. And that was just it was just like oil on my heart. It just made me think that
Can you hear her? No.
Just-
Say that again. I should have been doing this all along.
Well, just when you picked up the swing and said, all you have to do is swing. And I just thought that was so comforting. And sometimes that's just what we want in our marriage. We just want permission to be validated and to hear, you know, and to have someone hear us. So.
Did y'all ever have a time when you think you're doing all of the work and this guy's maybe not doing what you would like him to do? You know? I just want to end by saying this. There is a reason why he thinks green. From baby on up, your babies too, are beginning to formulate how they process things. You know, at about 5 or 6, isn't this just sickening? We learn how we're going to process something. So at 5 or 6, when something is not your way, then you throw a tantrum, that can follow you till when you're older or until when you challenge that. So anyway, before trying to change him, you know, we don't want him to be orange, please. If there were 2 of us in the house, could you stand it, really? So just giving that person permission to be who God made him to be. And we're all needing change. I love what you said, we all need change. Okay, where's Rochelle? Thank you very much.